Hello, this is Dr. Moyer. Welcome to steps 5 and 6 of program evaluation process. These steps are where you determine the statistical analysis and actually collect and analyze the data that you have decided to go ahead and use. So step 5 determines statistical analysis. The key evaluation questions should guide the analysis. And so whatever the key evaluation questions are, they have to be answered using whatever statistical analysis you decide to go with. I've used the example here on the PowerPoint of our program participants engaged in the program discussions. This is one of the key evaluation questions for an evaluation of an after-school program for adolescents. And I noted down at the bottom, there were actually 3 different types of data sources. Data methodology. There were surveys, interviews, and observational data. And the surveys, the program participants were surveyed. They were also interviewed and observed, and program staff was also interviewed. But we're going to focus on the participants. There are 2 general types of analysis or general types of data. There's quantitative data and there's qualitative data. And we've reviewed the different types of methodologies, but I've divided them up into quantitative versus qualitative. So with quantitative, you're basically dealing with surveys or even a document review. Document reviews typically involve some type of checklist, so you might go through a document and count how many times the word criminal is mentioned, for example. Qualitative analysis includes interviews, focus groups, observations, and case studies, and can include a document review if you're looking at pictures, but generally we don't really deal with that with program evaluation. With quantitative analysis, the focus is on numbers, so you think of quantity, numbers. With qualitative analysis, the focus is on quality, so that's a good way to remember the difference between the two. And with a quantitative analysis, you have 2 general types of variables, continuous and categorical. Continuous variables are numerical, and this does include Likert type scales because the data that is analyzed is numerical and the numbers mean something. They're not just randomly assigned. And so some examples of continuous variables: age, people indicate how old they are, how long a program has been in progress, maybe they're measured in months or years. You could have a Likert type scale that evaluates how bored program participants are with a certain aspect of the program. And then you can also have the number of program staff, maybe you've counted this, and then how much money the program costs, if people are indicating in a dollar value how much it cost. So these are just some examples, doesn't mean you have to follow these, but when you think of continuous variables, just think of numbers. Think of them coming to you in a numerical format automatically. So you're not having to change anything. You're just recording the numbers that you get. With categorical variables, you actually have to assign a number to them. And so they come to you whatever numbers you assign. So you may be collecting information about gender, ethnicity, the types of program delivery methods, even the geographic location of programs. Maybe there's multiple programs. And you have to assign a number in order to enter this data into either Excel or SPSS. Most likely you guys are probably using Excel, but if you've had statistics, you may also be using SPSS. And if you are, you can't enter words, you have to enter numbers. So let's take gender and ethnicity, for example. You might assign a 1 for male, 2 for females. With ethnicity, you may decide to assign a 1 to Caucasian, 2 African American, 3 Hispanic or Latino, 4 for Asian, 5 for mixed, 6 for other. Your actual participants aren't going to care what the numbers are. They'll just indicate their ethnicity to you, but you have to come up with a coding system so that you can enter it into Excel or SPSS. And I've given you an example here so you can see along the side ethnicity. We're not entering the actual ethnicity because if we try to analyze that, we're going to get a bunch of yuck. It won't do it. So I've actually put in the numbers here. And then age, they indicate how old they are. And I don't have to change that, so there's no coding system for it. It's a continuous variable. And so I've just entered how old they are in years. So you see, this is what it would look like in an Excel file or an SPSS file. You see the numbers, you see the name of the variable at the top. But then part of step 6, or not part of, but all of step 6 is actually collecting and analyzing the data. And so once you've determined how you're going to collect that data, now you have it. So for example, we have it here. And now we have to determine how we're going to report those findings or analyze that data. With quantitative data, you can create charts, bar charts, pie charts, whatever you want to do, and display them as figures. I've chosen to take the numbers here from ethnicity, and I had Excel determine how many there were of these categories. So there were 3 Caucasian, 3 African American, 2 Hispanic, and wait, is that right? Maybe not. Right. Okay, so there were 1, 2, 3. So there were 3 Caucasian, 1, 2, 3, 3 African Americans, and remember the coding system is here. There were 2 Hispanic or Latino participants. There was only 1 4, so there's 1 Asian participant. And you can see this laid out in the graph. Part of displaying quantitative results is following APA format. I have posted in D2L 2 worksheets regarding how to create a table and how to create a figure in APA format, and you must follow these steps exactly as indicated. So there shouldn't be any square around the figure itself. When you do create a figure, they will insert a title here. I've deleted that because that's not proper APA format. Proper APA format is to add down below the figure, figure 1 in italics, and then give it a title, ethnicity of the sample. And then you note here, N is actually a statistical symbol for how big the sample size is. And then you have to italicize that. So I've done N equals 9. Notice that there's space before and after the equal sign. These things are important, and you have to be very meticulous about it. Otherwise, you will lose points. It's very important that you follow APA format. Continuing on with quantitative results, you may be actually just writing up the results rather than displaying something in a figure. Here, I've given the example of the average age of the sample was 13. I calculated that with Excel by doing the average function. And then you'll note after I had to add how big the sample size was. Again, space before and after the equal sign, and the N is italicized. And then following this sentence, I added figure 1 illustrates the ethnic breakdown for the sample. And so this would follow that text so that people could see, okay, oh yeah, right, that makes sense. And I assessed boredom with a survey that asked people to, a survey item to ask people to rate on a scale from 1 to 7 how bored they were with the program itself. 1, not bored at all, 7, extremely bored. And again, I had Excel compute the average. And the average score for the 9 participants was 5.63. And that's leaning more towards the extremely bored side, so it appears that participants are pretty bored with the program. So this is just an example of how you would write this up. Again, it's important that you follow APA format. So these little things like adding the n equals 9 at least once somewhere is important. And it's important that you use past tense because you've already conducted the analysis. So you don't say, you don't use the present tense. Boredom will be measured with, or the future tense. You only use past tense. With qualitative analysis, it's a little bit different and it's going to vary a great deal. For this example, I'm pretending that the participants were asked to indicate what they thought of the program. And then I wrote that most, and you see a lowercase n because that's not the entire sample, it's a subsample, which is why we use the small n, and it's still italicized, there's still space before and after the equal sign. Most indicated that they liked the program for the most part, and 2 said that they didn't. Quotes were selected to exemplify the commentary, and this is part of qualitative analysis. Oftentimes you'll choose some quotes that you think best represent what the people said. So I've got, I think that the program is good, I enjoy the snacks and talking to people, then the staff are nice to us. The reason you see the ... and ... is because I selected this out of a larger quote. It was a really long one, and I just wanted to put in that people tended to note that the staff was nice. And then at the last one, it's boring. I added in the program in parentheses, and it's not italicized because I want the reader to know that I put that in, so they'll know what it's is referring to and not have to imagine themselves what that means. Just another example, the evaluator conducted an observation during a group discussion and just jotted down behaviors they noticed, and so the evaluator observed program participants during the group discussion and noticed the following behaviors. Participants had a hard time sitting still. The staff had to keep participants from interrupting one another. Participants looked at their cell phones a lot during the discussion. And so overall, my statement here is it seemed like the staff had a hard time keeping the participants engaged in the group discussion. So that may be a way that you would write up observation findings. In conclusion, I couldn't possibly give you an example for every single way that you would analyze data. It depends on your key evaluation questions, and it depends on how you collected that data. But ultimately, what you need to think about as the evaluator is, are you actually answering the questions? And so if we go back to the very beginning where I made up a question, are program participants engaged in the program discussions? Or even the program, it could just be, are program participants engaged in the program or do they enjoy it? I have some answers, and it seems like mostly they do enjoy it, but the staff seems to have a hard time keeping the people engaged in the discussions. So that would actually answer the key evaluation question, and that's what you need to remember and focus on, and that's what I will be looking for. Just something to remember, you're in the driver's seat here, so you get to decide exactly how you analyze the data, how you collect the data. Don't make this really difficult for yourself. I've mentioned several times we don't have a lot of time, and our time is running short. You want to answer the key evaluation questions, but you don't want to go crazy with all kinds of different analysis. If you have questions, do ask. You know how to reach me. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I can't emphasize that enough. So steps 5 and 6 are to determine the data analysis methods and then actually go ahead and collect and analyze your data. I hope this is clear. Thank you.